Hi, this is Joe Rabil with Rabil Stock Research. So as many of you know, I like to use both MACD and ADX. And typically what I'm doing on the ADX side is identifying which stocks I like to trade because it'll give me, like an early warning sign that something big could be developing. Now, there are specific signals in MACD that can give us the same sort of heads up in advance. And I'm going to show you one combination that I'm constantly on the lookout for using both a monthly and a weekly chart together. All right. So I think this is a pretty powerful tool. I want to go through this because, again, if you can anticipate, the more you can anticipate and plan ahead and know and think a few moves in advance, I think the better off you're going to be. All right. Let's go ahead and get started with this. Okay, let's start out with SPGI, S&P Global, specialty finance company. Now, what I want to do, just to set the stage, I've got the monthly chart here in the bottom left. In the bottom right, I've got the weekly, and then the daily in the upper right. I want to focus on these three today. And what I do, and one of the things that I do for my subscribers is when I do my highlights for the week and the stocks that I do a bottom-up report that goes through and identifies a lot of important, I think, developments. The individual stocks that I'm highlighting tend to have some pretty strong aspects on these two time frames, the monthly and the weekly. Now, what a lot of my subscribers do is they take that as a bullish backdrop for the trend, and then they use it to trade in this time frame between the weekly and the daily. And I fully encourage that, and a lot of what I do on the video is try and help with entries off the daily with the weekly as being the trend side. But what I wanted to explain here when we look at MACD is this can come in two different forms, right? I'm going to show you two different combinations of the way this can play out. But if you look at this, we have this move to the upside and we get a pullback after basically turning the corner and getting the trend started back to the upside on the monthly. And this pullback is a pinch, all right? So let me just show you. Now, there's about I have four specific patterns that I talk about in my book and my courses with respect to MACD. And I tell my subscribers to really got to learn those four patterns cold. You got to know them really, really well. And if you do, then you start to see them in multiple time frames. It can be pretty powerful. So we've got this pullback taking place. And if you notice, the MACD is holding above the signal line while it pulls back. So you can see it sort of pinching in towards the signal line, which is rising. So we want to be on the lookout for this on the higher time frame. And this can happen even on intraday charts. You can have a higher time frame, 10-minute, and a lower time frame, 2-minute if you want. But I'm using it for the bigger picture pattern because what you can do with this is identify something that has the potential to really make a pretty strong move over the next several months. And then you can go down to the smaller time frames and look for trading opportunities. So I like to look for this as a starting point where we're pulling back towards the moving average. We're showing some strength based on the green DI, holding above 25 during a pullback. And then we get this pause, this pullback, hesitation in price while the MACD pulls back towards its signal line. Now, in many cases, when it happens over a 2 to 3 month period, on the smaller time frame weekly, right? This is the higher time frame, and then this would be the lower time frame. We get the MACD to come back down towards the zero line. All right. Now, this can take shape in a couple different ways. In this particular pattern, we get what I call a zero line reversal pattern, where we come down towards, we've been stretched away from the zero line, and then we work down closer towards the zero line. In many cases, we will break the 18, but we'll typically come down in the area of the 40 and then start to find support. And in this case, it started to evolve and turn back to the upside and really got going here over the last, month and a half. And so we want to look for that combination, which is a pinch play on the left, and that's where we show signs of improvement, and then we hold the signal line on a pullback. All right. And then on the lower time frame, we get a full-blown correction, but it's not a deep correction because we hold the zero line on this time frame. So while this is holding the signal line, this weekly is holding the zero line. All right. That's the combination we want to be on the lookout for. Now you can see a little bit more it wasn't quite as clean, but the same thing happened here. We had a pinch play happen right here, and it was actually right at the zero line. And on this time frame, we did have a zero line reversal right here, and it did form an ABC decline as well. Right, we had the ABC, and in that case, we can draw our trend line in place. So anyway, I'm just showing you a couple of different examples of that. Let's look at a few other stocks, though. Let's look at something like ICE that just recently kind of broke out here. But if you notice, we had the same sort of pattern develop. First, we had one here where we had the pinch play develop right at the zero line, and we got, again, a little bit of an awkward zero line reversal in the way that it played out, but it does meet all the criteria that I'm talking about. And then we had another one. We got another pinch play here, and this formed, again, actually, while I would refer to this as a zero line test, even though it was pretty far away, it actually had a reverse divergence pattern, another one of the patterns that I talk about in my book. So we want to be on the lookout for any of those combinations. One of the things I want to stress, though, is the higher time frame pinch play coming off the zero line. As we turn back up from the zero line, it can be a really powerful tool from that standpoint. So let me just give you another example where it's starting to play out right now. We get a move to the upside, and we're forming the pinch, and we've got the zero line reversal developing, and we're starting to move. Now, this does have earnings coming in a little bit, but I thought it was just worthwhile just giving you a couple more examples. Look at something like Morgan Stanley. So this one is a little bit different. All right. Now, this time, on the higher time frame, we get the zero line reversal. Do you see how this spent all this time and came down to the zero line? So we know we want to be on the lookout for this. And then on this time frame, we're looking for the pinch play to develop. It happened a few times, but this is the one that really caught my eye, and the reason why I started highlighting it to my subscribers as a pinch play on this time frame, and then look at it was a zero line reversal on this time frame. So we've just moved up a time frame. Typically, what I was showing you in the examples was a monthly doing the pinch and then a weekly forming the zero line reversal. In this case, we have a weekly pinch and then a daily zero line reversal. All right, so we want to know that this can happen in multiple time frames. Just to give you another example, look at something like Goldman, how this formed a zero line reversal here on the monthly and then had this big breakout, and now recently has formed this same sort of pinch play on this time frame and zero line reversal on this time frame. All right. So continue to do that. Look at something like PNC. Now, most of the regionals haven't really traded that well, but look at the combination. We got a pinch play here where we moved up, and we got a 2 to 3 bar pause where we made 2 lower highs, and MACD held above the signal line on this time frame. And then we got a zero line reversal, which was also a reverse divergence. And now we're starting to emerge out of that. Now, again, a lot of these have earnings coming. We'll have to see, but we want to be on the lookout for this combination where higher time frame is forming a pinch, lower time frame is forming the zero line reversal or zero line or reverse divergence, and sometimes both. All right, great combination to be on the lookout for. We're seeing a lot of these happen right now. If you're enjoying the content, hit that like button and also subscribe. So my services can be found at rabilstockresearch.com. I'm on the services page right now. You can see at the top I've got the advanced trend and momentum courses individually priced for lifetime access, plus you could buy them as a bundle at a discount. And then also the individual package has about 2 to 3 reports each week, plus a special video commentary each week for that package. Also, if you're new to this approach and you want to just learn more about it, you can start with the book I'm offering at a discount right now. Before we get going, let me just say this is for educational purposes only. Please do your own due diligence before making any investment decisions. Okay, so I'm going to get started now with a slightly different look. I normally have the charts up, but I want to show some of the power of how we can go into this ACP program, use the sector summary, look at the market summary, and get a real good feel for what's taking place. So first of all, we look at the sector, and I've been doing this each week, and if you notice this week now, look at what's at the top. I've sorted it by the scooter rank, and because there's a positive and the negative to the scooter rank. I think the scooter rank's a little too quick for me from a trend standpoint, like if I'm looking for individual stocks, but I think it's really powerful when I'm looking at the sector action because I want to see speed there. I want to see what's really moving and where the money is flowing. And I think that's where this can be a huge advantage. So I've got the financials up at the top, industrials number 2, and then energy. So I think this is kind of cool. You can also see how technology, which was at 93 or something like that within a week or two ago, has dropped down pretty quickly. I'm actually sort of surprised that consumer discretionary hasn't moved up a little bit more. I'm actually seeing some pretty good looking patterns inside there. I'm going to show you a few at the end of the show here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go through these. I'm going to look at a few different sectors. I'm going to do the market summary a little bit and then cover some of the requests that came in. And then at the end, I want to go through some stocks that I'm seeing where money is flowing right now and, highlight some of the sector action. But I just think this is kind of cool. You can see how, so what I've been highlighting to my subscribers the last few weeks is that we saw a number of so I keep track of all the financials and industrials based on a cumulative indicator. And I do it for every sector, but I had highlighted those two specifically because the majority of them are in trends. They're in bullish long-term trends, but on a short-term basis, they had gotten oversold essentially. And so I had just been highlighting, we want to be on the lookout for these to sort of turn it on here. And it looks like that's where we're starting to see some rotation. So I think that's a good sign. Certainly different areas, I think real estate has also shown some really attractive patterns. I'm going to show a few of those as well. Now, one of the things I wanted to point out here in this market summary, in this little, this micro map of a heat map of what's taking place, you can see that large cap growth is really getting crushed. And the leader really, although large cap value is doing well, I kind of like to look at it like this. We want to go from this end to this end and see if there's opposing action, meaning we know that this is sort of the one end of the spectrum. Small cap value would be one end of the spectrum and large cap growth would be the other end. So if large cap growth is having a bad day, I want to look down and see if I'm seeing it rotating into this, and that's what's taking place. Clearly value, we're starting to see some improvement in those areas. I think it's good that small cap, even though the growth side is down, it's not down anywhere near as much as large cap. I think those are good signs. We've been watching the IWM now for a while. I'm going to show you what that looks like in a minute. Okay, let's drop this down and I want to go through and look at a few different things. So we're going to switch this over to the list. We're going to take a look at the QQQ to start. Now, one of the things that I have been talking about and focusing in on is the strength and the fact that this hit a new high, that we kind of need to start the process all over again for looking for a trend line break. But if you notice what's taking place, we basically have this breakout pattern that's failing. So we were hitting a new high on a relative basis, right? And we're kind of failing to hold that breakout. And now we're getting really close to breaking the trend line, the uptrend line on a relative basis. I just think it's really critical to keep comparing the QQQ and the IWM to the S&P and see what we're seeing in terms of leadership roles. I think this is a really good sign because I don't see extreme damage being done to these big stocks. Right? I just think they got way overdone to the upside and they needed to go through a correction. You can see this hit the big round number. The QQQ hit the big round number at 500. Whenever I get big round numbers, 100, 500, 1,000, anything like that in any stock or index, we always want to keep an eye out for some kind of a reversal. I think there's a pretty good chance this is going to work its way back down closer to the 18-week line. So 450, 60, something like that, I think makes sense to me. And I would view that more as a healthy correction rather than something all that damaging. Now, if you noticed, we had this last new high take place and the MACD did not confirm by making a higher high as well. So we're getting kind of a pullback at that 500 mark. Again, based on the strength of the ADX, I'm not really looking for some kind of a big rollover reversal trend ending pattern, okay? I think it's more of a corrective pattern that I think is healthy. Some of these names have just been moving up too much, too fast. And I think I think we're a lot better off if we get corrections now rather than some kind of an accelerated trend that turns into some kind of a climax. All right, this is where I think it gets very interesting is the IWM. I've been talking about this every week, going over it over and over and over again. And the reason why I do this week after week is so we can actually see the shift. And hopefully you guys are tracking this on your own, but look at the volume pattern as this is breaking out. You see the dynamics of this move? So we had low ADX, and we had low ADX here, but now we're crossing above the 25 line. And look at the strength of the buyers hitting the 55 mark. Really good sign. Normally green DI and volume will have a high correlation. So you kind of will notice when green DI is having a big move, you'll see pretty big volume associated with it. So really good sign. Then we go and look at the pattern on the weekly. Big, huge smile. We always want to look at those for those smiles. Big cupping pattern. We had the reverse divergence I mentioned last week, where we had a higher low here, a lower low here, coming into lower low here, coming into the zero line with low ADX. And we're getting the result of that, I think, in a pretty nice way. So really good sign. Then we go and look at the relative strength. Look at what's taking place. We're finally crossing above. Now we're breaking the downtrend line, but more important to me, we're getting above this moving average. Now we need to have enough strength for this line to start to cup around and turn to the upside. And I'd actually like to see it to be so strong that it moves up and it kind of holds on a pullback. It might trickle down below it a little bit, but I want to see it kind of hold in the area while this RSI 5 maybe works its way back down a little bit and works off a short-term overbought condition. Now, because it's been so compressed and hasn't done anything for a while, we might go straight up into that 230, 235 area before we get a pullback potentially. But just realize the indices are going to mask a little bit of improvement in the overall market because the big names going through a correction are going to weigh down the NASDAQ. They're going to weigh down the S&P. There's such a big portion of those indexes that even if the average stock is actually showing signs of improvement, the indices actually could be kind of either consolidating, pulling back, or correcting. So just want to keep that in mind. I think you want to be bottom up right now. That's my world. I go through stock by stock by stock and sector by sector by sector and look at the action and what's taking place underneath the surface, all right? And there's a lot of improvement taking place. All right, I want to go through a couple of requests that came in before I get into some stocks that I think look pretty attractive right now. So the cyber, I mean, I think if you look at this compared to what's taking place in software, this is holding up like a champ. But what happened here is that it made this move to the upside, and it didn't really, it needs to go through a pullback and form a higher low. So I want to see this test 250, low 250 area, and then make a higher bottom. I wouldn't really expect it to break out in this sort of V-bottom look. I think we're a lot better if we form some kind of a higher low here. And as long as green DI can hold above red, I think this is in pretty good shape. The long-term pattern looks good. I just think it's gotten a little ahead of itself. It probably needs a little bit more time to consolidate. So one to keep on your watch list, but I think it's still a little early right now for a new buying opportunity. eBay, I think, looks pretty good. I view this more as like a continuation signal at this point. We had a pretty nice entry on this move to the upside, and then we got a pullback. It hasn't really broken out, so I don't have a problem playing this, and we probably would be looking at the daily chart for, actually, we got the pretty nice green bar here yesterday. So I think this looks pretty attractive overall. We had a zero line reversal, and we're starting to turn up to the upside. I don't think it's a bad, especially if you want to play this off the weekly and use the daily for your risk. I think you can do that. On a bigger picture pattern, if I wanted to play it off the monthly and the weekly, I'd probably want to maybe give this a little bit more time to consolidate or something like that. But again, I think the overall pattern looks good, and I think the bias is to the upside. Okay, let's look at something like Electronic Arts. Look at the breakout taking place. First, I want to look at the monthly because you can see how we topped out in 2001 and we formed this big sort of cupping pattern. And the MACD worked off the overbought condition, came down to 0, and now we're turning up there. And look at how green DI is crossing back above for the first time in a few years, crossing above the 25 level. Right? So, and now we're breaking out on a weekly chart. We're breaking out with a big green bar and we're getting some follow through. So this is a stock I definitely would be watching. I probably would be looking for some kind of a little pullback on the daily chart, see if this can't hold. We've made a pretty big move on the weekly. So I'd like to see it maybe hesitate a little bit. I don't know that I need the weekly to set up on a pullback, but I might be looking for a daily pullback to the 18, something like that. But you can see the bigger picture pattern on the monthly. This is a big deal. If this gets through 150, there's some real potential in here, especially with the ADX moving. I think that's a really good sign. Signs of improvement on a relative basis as well. All right, I want to show a couple of things that I'm seeing. First of all, look at cake. All right, so this is consumer discretionary. Look at the pattern that's developed. I've been highlighting this for several weeks as it was creeping up and looking like it wanted to break out. And then it formed this higher low with the pinch play and improving ADX. And look at the volume. Everything about it looks attractive, especially now with the 18-month cupping around and providing support underneath. Really good sign with the relative strength also showing signs of improvement. This is what we want to see. So that's consumer discretionary. Look at something like this Brixmore Properties. This is a REIT, all right? I mean, this has been doing nothing now for a few years. Look at the tight base that's formed, and we're starting to move out of this area. And yes, I'm looking at breakout plays because this stock. So what I look at is if we have low ADX, and we had low ADX here, I am looking for a breakout out of a low ADX condition. And I have no problem buying the breakout or, again, using the daily chart for a little bit of a dip back to support. Look for some kind of a higher low to form on the daily. And that could be a pretty good entry. But really, if you're looking to play this on a bigger picture pattern, it really could look attractive. It's currently paying... let's just see, paying a 4.4 dividend, 4.4% dividend. So that's the kind of thing I like to see in a big basing stock that's cupping around. Look at this turning at the 0 line with a low ADX condition, and we got back-to-back 0 line reversals. That's pretty rare to see that. And in fact, even on the daily chart, we had a little dip down close to the 0 line. So not overbought by any stretch of the imagination. So that's a REIT. Now look at something in the industrial space. Look at this Ford. Look at the flow. Look at where the money is flowing right now. You see the volume? Look at this ADX, which correlates to the volume. Look at that huge move that we've seen. And again, look at the basing pattern that developed. And I really like the fact that this made a undercut here. And it formed sort of an inverted head and shoulders pattern. You see how we've got, a shoulder here, and then we formed a head, and then we came down and we formed the right shoulder. Now we're turning back up. I mean, I think if this can get through 15, this could really get some legs. We've already seen an improvement on a relative basis. You see how this has turned up on a relative basis. Now, that's not necessarily confirmed because the moving average hasn't turned to the upside, but we want to pay attention to stocks that are emerging at a basis like this. Now, I want to go back and look at it. In fact, so I've done consumer discretionary. I have done a REIT. I've done an industrial. Now, look at this bank stock. This is a regional bank. Regional banks have done nothing. Look at what's taking place on this monthly chart. Look at the 0 line reversal with low ADX. You see this monster green bar? There's a monster green bar on the monthly, and there's a monster green bar on the weekly. We have a 0 line reversal on the monthly, and we have a 0 line reversal on the weekly. Look at the size of the base. It's been dead for years, and now it's starting to come to life. This is what we want to be on the lookout for. Now, they have earnings. I'm not sure if that's already come out. No, it's after the market close today. So got to be aware of that. But this size of this base is really pretty impressive. Now, lastly, let me just show you this. TNL, this is another consumer discretionary. Look at the way this monthly has formed 2 narrow range bars back to back after turning to the upside in the 18-month providing support. And then if you look at what's going on the weekly, we've got this big turn developing, and we're starting to see these green bars show up and really good strength starting to emerge on the daily chart. Thanks for watching the show today. If you have any stock requests, you can send them to stocktalk@stockcharts.com. Also, if you have an interest in learning more about some of these techniques with MACD and ADX, you could go to my YouTube channel called Invest Like a Pro. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time.